Hello, Andre. Nice to meet you.
Nice to be here.
Welcome to the Manage Agile conference.
Thank you.
I realized you got a.
Yes.
You're coming from this. Go to swim afterwards, right? Or do you think it's so exhausting the interview?
Yes. No, it's not for that. It's because the name of our company comes a little bit from the Hitchhiker Guides to the Galaxy, and they always have this "Don't panic" guides, and you always have to go around with a towel to avoid all the problems. And when you coach, you definitely need a towel. There's a lot of things happening, and it's hard work, so you sweat, and then it's always useful to have a towel with you.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay, so we are here on the Manage Agile conference, which is not a developer conference.
Yes.
So my very first question would be, obviously, agility is nothing that is limited to pure development.
Yes.
Is there any limitation? What do you say? What is your observation on the current market? Is there, in terms of inside an organization, depending on IT or not IT or whatever, is it an IT topic or what is it?
I mean, in general, being more agile or becoming agile means that the organization is capable of changing fast and adapting fast to changes on market side or client side, and is able to do that at a low cost. So business agility is about being able to do that switch, that change, and adapt very quickly to market changes so you can actually overcome your competitors. And this has not much to do with development itself, because it's a discipline which needs to be broadened in the whole organization. Otherwise, you will have what we call local optimization. So the risk is, if company only focus agility on development, they probably get faster development, but at the end of the day, development is just a small portion of running a business. So it's just probably 30-40%. So even making that part twice as fast as it was before is not probably going to help very much in achieving business goal.
Okay, so that means all the surrounding activities or parts of the organization need to follow the same structure?
Yes, in general, it's not so much about structure, but it's more about principle. So one of the goal of the guiding values of Agile is to put the value and the customer at the center and try to do everything possible to accommodate, to react to changes rather than following a plan, and to focus on the fact that working products are the primary measure of progress, and this goes beyond just development. It means that an organization should reorganize itself in a way to reduce the amount of time or the amount of activities which are necessary to deliver the value that the customer expects. And this goes way beyond just the development, because from the moment we acquire a new customer in an organization and to the moment we deliver value, there's a lot of processes going on, which are most of the time also the bottleneck or the place where organizations lose most of the effectiveness in delivering fast. And in today's time to market, in 2015, for many organizations, it's actually more expensive to come late on the market with a new product rather than spending more in development. The cost of delay, how we call it, is in 2015 one of the biggest causes why company fail compared to what was 20 years ago. And this is because of the internet, the globalization, which speed up completely and created different way of doing business that many organizations are not able to adapt to these new changes fast enough. And what we see happening is that most of them are nearly desperate, and they come probably toward agile or lean approaches, if you want, to reorganize the whole company, maybe too late, when the pressure is already too high and there is no margin for error anymore. And that's not a good situation to be. You would like, whenever you do a change approach in your organization, to be in a situation in which you can afford to make a mistake and you have the time to learn and to change also people without introducing mistake or failure which can cause the company to close down.
Well, in my observation, it's quite often the case when you are asked to help a company, and I think you do that quite often, that a statement like, please come, we need to make them the development or whatever agile. No, it's not us, so don't touch us. No, we don't touch the status quo. So that sounds a bit different what you're just saying compared to
Yes.
that situation. How often are you facing that type of situation?
I mean, yeah.
And how do you overcome the that it's not our problem, it is somebody else's problem, and we don't need to change, but others need to change, and that has nothing to do with your definition as you have just explained what is agility all about.
Yes. I mean, we stay behind this thought that agility is not something which only relates to one part of an organization, but is an overall organizational attitude, if you want. And what people don't understand is that agility is not a destination, but is a means to fulfill a goal. And becoming agile means being able to continuously improve. And this is what many organizations don't really get. And continuously improve in the direction of the value that they deliver. So on the value stream, how we call it, is an exercise which is never ended, is a continuous search for what can we change and improve over time. So said that, still many organizations come to us as they come to many other consulting company or coaches company, and they ask to implement Scrum or to implement Kanban in a development team, which is a very, very small context. We are always very clear from the beginning of what are the goals they are trying to achieve. Why do they want a Scrum team or Kanban teams to be established within the organization? Which is the problem they are trying to solve? Because it might be that is not the solution they are looking for. So we are always very challenging with people when they come with this type of request, and we always try to actually explain them that there is value in optimizing the end-to-end flow within an organization, independent of what the value is. And we work with companies who don't even do IT at all. So we have many clients, about 30-40% of our clients, who are actually not building software at all. And they are still enjoying pretty successful continuous improvement cycles within their organization. They still have cross-functional teams, and they use a form of organization which are more open and, if you want, more resilient to the change which happens on the market. So organization who wants to succeed in the future are organization who understand that the way towards survival or towards success is to be able to adapt very fast to market changes, faster than any other of your competitor. Because today, as we said before, with the internet, you have a free-to-use infrastructure, which helps many small companies grow very fast just because that infrastructure is for free. And you can offer services online wherever you are around the world at very low cost. So for big established businesses or concern also, like Siemens or Ericsson or SAP, this type of competition is starting to hurt, especially locally, where they are losing probably ground, and they are not as remotely as fast as these people to actually release new feature and new services on the market.
You just mentioned the big companies. I think that is the bigger challenge from my experience. I mean, having a small startup and finding the structures in the company and using Agile to build up a structure which does not yet exist is one kind of the story, but the other kind of the story is a big tanker on the market for 100 plus whatever years, being successful in the past and now trying to make that happen in such a large enterprise environment. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience in terms of duration, for example? Is there I mean, if something that doesn't end obviously has an endless duration, so you cannot make a statement about duration in general, what I understood. But at least how long does it take to really achieve a level where there is a significant...
Well, it really depends on many factors. So the size of the organization being one of them, but also one thing that few people talk about is the culture of the organization. So in which type of culture is the organization thriving and growing? So which type of culture do they explicitly adopt to survive in the market in which they are surviving? Because moving toward an agile and lean environment requires to have the adequate supporting culture. And the introduction of tools and processes in an environment which is not ready to assimilate those tools and processes often leads to temporary success or a flare of success because people are motivated with a new method, with a new process, but after a while they realize that there is nothing really different from the way they were working before, and so this tool just dies, that they just stop being used over time. And our goal is always been to help an organization to reach sustainable growth and sustainable change autonomously. So our goal is to get out of a company as fast as we can. We don't want to stay long inside company. For this reason, whenever we start a big transition, we start from the beginning, working from top to bottom up as well. The reason we do that is because we want to awake the interest of the people which are doing the work every day, and as well starting creating the perspective of change on a top management level. And we do that over now more than 11 years that we do this on the market, and we have very large clients like Siemens, many business divisions as well, and Ericsson, SAP, HSBC, Disney, so all very, very large organizations around the world. And the way we face the projects of change by them is really focusing on agreeing on a common strategy which aligns the business needs of the organization with, if you want, some possible quick wins or the findings that we can provide an organization after a phase of assessment, we call it that way, which is about 2 to 3 days time, in which we challenge the management team of an organization on various aspects. For example, to understand what their business goal is, how much is the organization and the structure aligned with the business goals and the culture and stuff like that. And based on this type of activity, we are able to, together with the management team, to distill a list of changes that might be helpful for them to fulfill the goal. And then we set up a strategy. And the way we initiate change and we teach the organization to drive the change autonomously is basically by running what we call safe to fail experiments. So we are running small vertical experiment which lasts between 8 to 12 weeks each, in which we are able to test and validate the hypothesis that this group of experts within an organization, because we can't know the business of all the organization around the world, but they have people who can. And so we guide them through these activities until, through various experiments, they are able to identify which organizational change actually improve their way of working and which don't. And so once they validated the one which are good, the next challenge is to roll out that activity across the whole organization. And this happens normally by establishing internal coaching capabilities, because that's the only way that agility will be sustainable inside a large organization, but also small organization. And so we invest pretty much of our time in building these capabilities at the client side.
So kind of a bootstrap mechanism to make it...
Exactly. So we basically create a sort of agile organization pattern, if you want, for a specific organization, which includes organizational structure, processes, and cultural change as well. And we teach also internal coaches to actually roll out this change, which means teaching people how things are going to be different, very much localized to their specific need, and also supporting these people through coaching in the change which is happening afterwards. And we basically have an indirect approach, so we coach the coach and we train the trainer so that the organization will be self-sustaining very fast. In our experience, even large transition, which involved over 2,000 people, that we already did 3 or 4 times on in the past 5 years, we are able to bring an organization to a self-sustaining state within 12 months, more or less. And then how long it will take to continue the transition until everyone will be affected, we don't know, because that's entirely dependent on business and strategic priority as well. So it's not anymore our choice.
Mm-hmm. You just mentioned that you are kind of doing a kind of a backlog for list of changes you mentioned, or impediment list, whatever that must be solved. Is there kind of reoccurring pattern when you especially look at the German big companies, that what you can say, okay, I can a $10 bet that this and this and this will be on that impediment list, kind of standard trouble that is always the case?
Well, it's not easy to say, because every organization grew especially out of many years of experience, and they built kind of their own world and their own culture. But once we are able to assess where the company stays in terms of cultural positioning, we are able to identify or to expect what could be the recurring negative patterns that we would find probably in that organization. And sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not. So there is no 100% certainty. And this is a little bit the value of it, because every organization, it's a miracle on its own, if you want. And the reason why they have success in business is because they continuously adapted over years until they develop their own system of work. And these systems of work is what make the organization unique. And would be very silly to think that there are models, and then you just tackle the models and the organization will follow, because the organization is made by people, and people need to understand why change happens, need to be bought into the change, need to support the change as well, otherwise changes are not sticking for long. So there are no recurring things. One obstacle that we always find is the typical of any change management initiative, that is, people like changes as far as it's not affecting their own position. And it's not just about job safety or salary safety, it's about power. So we see a lot of political and power game going on in many organizations, because until it's made clear what is the future position, what is the future organization. So it's very difficult to drive bottom up and top down this type of initiative when there is so much at stake on the table. And transparency is something that people might fear, because all of a sudden everything which probably was a leverage in their power play, it's all of a sudden transparent and available to everyone. So these are the typical difficulties that we find. Mm-hmm. And it's not just a specific role, it's really everybody. So it depends on personal, individual fear and the simple fact of being unable to embrace uncertainty.
Well, if I look back the last 10 or 15 years, as long as I am kind of aware of that thing, which is older, but that's when I was aware of it. Well, it started in the development, and now it is, I think, it is a root grass. It is a kind of a mainstream in development. I'm not quite sure whether we can say that already. But now the current, focus is shifting towards scaling, and then it goes immediately into management. So the question is, can you kind of magically glass bowl make a statement? Is there anything coming around the corner in the area of agility that is saying, okay, that as soon as we have achieved that, probably next stage or next area in business or whatever, so future of agility, is there anything that is coming around the corner?
I mean, it's difficult to say, and I'm also not a big fan of this scaling thing, because I think it's actually hiding the problem, it's not solving it, in a meaning that is putting, like Craig Larman was saying this morning, is like putting a patina of Agile on existing structure and organization, which actually don't make them more agile just by changing name and tools or processes. And the other thing is, I think the real challenge is making organization become agile and not adopting agile, and that's a big difference. So becoming agile and growing with an agile mindset and making sure that every person within the organization will react to changes the same way that the organization wish to do, and that everyone will be aligned with a common strategy toward the direction, so that when the organization decides to change direction, as you said before, is a big tanker, so it's not going to change direction just because the front of the boat is starting moving in one direction and the back is still moving in the old ones. This will destroy the organization, will tear them apart. So the real challenge is how to make organization become more agile and grow agility inside the organization rather than scaling. Honestly, delivering software in a scaled environment, is just, let me say, an organizational design issue. You just need to find the pattern which mostly fit your organization, to synchronize when needed, but as few as possible, and coordinate development across multiple teams. And that's not the big challenge. The big challenge is changing the culture and changing the mindset to make sure that this organization will not just be adapting a model or another one, but will continuously challenge the status quo and try to get better and better over time.
Mm-hmm. So you're not agreeing with Greg that he is saying, he was saying this morning that culture is always an outcome of organizational structure. Mm-hmm. So as long as you don't change the structure, you will never change the culture.
Yeah.
You just, when I understood it right, were saying the other way around.
It's not really the other way around. So Craig has a very system thinking perspective on the problem. System thinking believes that the system produces the behavior, which is partly true. The problem is to change a system into a completely different system causes resistance if the culture is not prepared to accept a new system. So you need to work on both sides. So the difficult part when we do coaching and when we do organizational change is to actually create the right cultural context in order to enable the new organization to succeed. Mm-hmm. is because we want the organization to be the driver to change the behavior. But if we are not able to prepare the organization to accept the new behavior, the new role, the new position, and so on, it's not going to make it. Because sooner or later, people will start blackmail, sabotage the whole thing until it will basically wind down to the same, patina on top of things. So people will pretend that everything changed, but actually didn't. So that is where we have really to be careful, because strategy, culture is strategy for breakfast. So we can have the best strategy in the world, but when the context is not ready to accept this strategy come in, including organizational design, is not going to last. It's not going to be a sustainable change. And we cannot have people, observing every individual with the whip and making sure they are following the new organization, or the organization is actually really enabling people without having clear goals and clear things. This is why Craig also says many times you need to have a lot of coaching. You need to explain every individual what is going to change for him and where the cheese moved. Yeah? Is going somewhere else. Now we need to focus on something else. How is my role changing? And this takes really a lot of time.
Looking at the topic of the conference, Manage Agile, I think there's a lot of challenges in that area. Do you have any recommendations what parts need more focus currently? Where maybe the conference can provide more support for the management, for the company as such? Is it in the human resource area? Is it whatever? Do you see any kind of topic that could be an added value for the whole agile community idea in terms of support in companies?
So there are really many things, but I think one of the biggest, I made a presentation a couple of years ago, and I said this is the challenge of the next decade, and this transforming corporate manager into agile leaders. And what I mean with that is that people or managers today need to understand that in an agile and lean environment, but agile and lean are just words, because the truth is, if we want to survive in today's market, we need to have employees which are engaged, people who likes and understand the work they do and can make decisions rapidly and independently, otherwise we are never going to succeed. To have that, we need to have managers who stop managing people and start managing the environment. So they need to shift one level up and let people self-organize. And they can do that by becoming leader and giving clear direction, giving a clear vision, making clear what the constraints are in which people can then self-organize. And this is a very difficult shift to make, because in many organizations, especially in Europe, there is no culture of management. So manager become manager because they were the best technician or the best tester and whatever, and because of the career growth, at a certain point, the only way to pay them more money was to transform them into manager. But none of these guys was ever trained to become a manager, so they don't know really how to manage. So they are improvising, they're learning themselves. So that's a big hole that we need to fill. And also we need to provide these people modern tool for management. And with this I mean everything which is suitable or adaptive to the level of culture and change that we want to introduce through the organization. So one of the biggest mistakes that we see is that people treat an agile transition or a change like a normal change management program, and it's all from top to bottom planned in a hierarchical way with a roadmap and everything. So the whole construction itself of creating this program is actually propagating to people their own culture. So we are trying to do agile by using waterfall to roll out agile. How can this work? It's like when the parents tells the kids not to chew their finger and they do it like this in the meanwhile. So that's, people see and the behavior and see the role model much more than what the words or the nice slides going around are. So we have to be very careful. The next generation of management which will succeed is a generation which is able to enlighten people, to show them where the way is, make clear what the constraints are, and will be able to apply modern technique for empirical control and statistical control, rather than using the traditional top-down defined control with planning and staffing, reporting, and all this type of thing. Also, the hierarchical structure is something which is very ancient, so come from Friedrich Taylor, 1911, and honestly, 104 years later, I'm sure that the world's changed quite a bit, and we might find better way of organizing our company than keeping on with the hierarchical model.
Okay. I think that was a very good final statement. We have a good vision of what we could go for at the Manage Agile for the next years and go leadership direction. That's probably the main message.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me here. and don't panic.